Okay, friends, we are about to go live on YouTube. Am I on? How many people do we have watching on YouTube? 6. Well, welcome. Welcome everybody here, and welcome to our participants that are remote. My name is Nancy Irving, and I have been the organizer of this trip. And so this is our meeting where we're going to communicate information to prepare you for the trip. We have with us tonight the emissary, the Shaliach from Israel, Rami Feinstein, and he is going to speak first and welcome us to Israel. And Rami, your little girl going to be okay up there by herself? Oh, she's busy. Okay, come on up here. Thank you, Rami.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you for having me here. It feels very formal with the podium, so I can start with saying, because I think Rabbi David asked me to kind of mention a few differences maybe between Israelis and Americans, which it's something that I'm not crazy about doing because it's very hard to not, fall into those stereotypes. And but yeah, I can definitely say that we're less formal than you are in general in our culture. We do not wear suits to weddings. Like this is really formal for me now because it has buttons. So we're less formal than Americans in general, and I can definitely say that. And I thought we'd kind of be sitting in a circle and talking, but let's pretend that we are. And so my name is Rami Feinstein, and as of 4 months ago, I am the Israeli emissary for the Jewish Akron community. I was born here in the States, in Paramus, New Jersey, and my parents, when I was 2 years old, decided to what we call make aliyah, to immigrate to Israel. And so I lived all of my life in Israel, and we spoke Hebrewish at home, like a mixture of, or Inglu if you want, the other way. Kind of a mixture between English and Hebrew, like in the same sentence we would, mix everything. And for me to visit family is to come to America, because my parents came to Israel, everybody, the rest of the family stayed here in America. So the connection between Jews in Israel and Jews in America is something that's very personal to me. And I used to come here and see my cousins, and going back to where we started this conversation, the only time I would wear a suit is when I came to my cousin's bar mitzvah in America. And there's also a funny story. When I was in high school, I had long hair, and I played the drums. I'm a musician. I'll talk about that a little bit. And I played the drums, and I had long hair, and there was a bat mitzvah in America of my cousin, so we planned on going again. My mother was like, well, your grandmother is not going to agree for you having long hair, and it's for the bat mitzvah, everybody's going to be very formal. You're going to be with long hair. No, if you want to come, you got to cut your hair. Now, if it was really a big thing for me, I would probably stand and say no. But I didn't care that much, and I think I kind of planned to cut it short anyway. But the amazing thing is that we came to the States, and then I have two cousins my age, and I see both of them with long hair. So, so I was with short hair and a suit, and they were, okay. So, in the Army, I was an officer of education. I couldn't be a combat soldier because I have one eye that I don't see very well. So I couldn't be a combat soldier, but I became an officer, and I dealt with education, and then I became a commander in an officer's course, training officers to be. And after that, for 10 years, I was an educator, working for some nonprofits, and a lot of my work has to do with why I'm here today. A lot of workshops and seminars and academic courses about Jewish identity. And after that, I was in marketing for a couple of years, and I've always been a musician, singer-songwriter, and I sing and I write my own songs, and I perform and I tour, and I have 4 albums. So a little bit of the reason why I'm here and why I think the dialogue between Jews in America and Jews in Israel is important. There's many reasons, but what's most dear to me is the challenges that I think we face together in terms of Jewish identity, in terms of answering the question, who we are. And to make a very long story short, I can tell you that when I was, for instance, doing seminars, and I was going back to the Army, and I was doing workshops for cadets about Jewish identity. I used to ask them, why do we need the state of Israel? Why do you think we need it? And most of the answers, at least the first answers I would get, is because we have to have a safe place for the Jews, because we don't want another Holocaust. And then the fun would begin, because I would crush those answers one at a time. I would really argue with them and get them aggravated, and I would talk about the fact that there's a lot of problems with what we call a negative identity, an exclusive identity rather than inclusive, right? The way of looking at the group that I am part of, we are together because we are victims of something. But what if that something didn't happen? Do we have something, and do we still have enough in common to be a group, right? What if in the other room there's a group that hates us? Does that mean that we have to be together, maybe, to survive? But we have other options. Most of the Jews throughout history decided at a certain point to stop being Jews, statistically. But we chose to stay Jewish. So we don't have to be together just because other people hate us, just because of the Holocaust. And if you're looking at this, the place, if you're looking at security, we have that in Israel too, by the way. if you're looking at security and you're saying the state of Israel is a place that's supposed to be safe for Jews, statistically, it's not such a big success, because the least safest place in the world since 1948, right, is Israel. Statistically, it's much better here. So that's not a good enough reason for me. That's not a good base for Jewish identity. Victimhood and a negative identity. I'm not talking about negative in terms of good or bad. Negative like photography, right? There's the positive and the negative. So I am me just because I am not him, right? No, who am I regardless of the people that don't like me, regardless of anti-Semitism, which we're unfortunately dealing with. And I would be even more annoying and provocative and say, what if, God forbid, one day there's peace in the world? What if, God forbid, we stop hating each other? Then there's no need for Israel, or what? So we would get confused and spend a week together talking about those questions. But basically, I feel like for the past maybe 300 years since humans started, some of us started to be secular, and being Jewish is not only one religious following the rules way. We've been kind of searching together and answering the questions who we are. And I am here because I feel that this is a question that Jews in America and Jews in Israel have to answer together. And that because I feel that Jews in America can learn from the way Jews from Israel answer that question, and vice versa. And I think we can learn from American Jews lots of things as well. So that's kind of, in general, my philosophy. What do I have to contribute to your trip without falling into stereotypes? I'm sure some people told you Israelis are this, Israelis are that. I'm not a big fan of that kind of conversation, because there's 9 million of us, you know? And it's like, what are Americans? Sometimes I say, okay, this is very American of you. And for instance, I was performing a few months ago in a festival. So there was a stage for the artists, and there were like 2,000 people, and there were a lot of like vendors for food, and they put the stage in a very crappy location. So it wasn't inviting for the people to kind of come and watch the shows. It was like, it felt like another booth, instead of having the stage being the center of everything. And as an artist, so there's lots of people walking around, and you got like 20 people next to the stage, and it's kind of weird. Would have been much better if there was like 500 next to the stage, right? So I got to meet this very nice Jewish American guy that performed after me, and we kind of jammed a little bit together, and we had a connection, and we hang out a little bit. And then the girl that organized the festival came to us and said, so what did you think about the setup of the festival? And so I'm kind of experienced in the way that I sometimes am very direct. So I kind of let him answer. And he basically, so if it was up to me, I would say, listen, I wouldn't be like rude, but I would say, listen, I think it was not a good choice. I think a better location of the stage would serve the purpose much better, and I think everything could have been better if it was here and not there. Not like, aggressive, but opinionated. And he started the sentence, and I once he started talking, I'm like, I can learn from this guy. And he started the sentence, well, it was very interesting. And basically, I don't remember the rest, but basically he said, it was very interesting how the stage was located in a place where no one came to see the shows. Now, he didn't say it exactly like that, but he kind of said that. But the fact that he chose the words very interesting, so that for me sometimes is a little bit of the difference. I feel like sometimes we're more upfront, more direct. But again, that is generalizing. I don't know if you have any brochures for this trip, or did you get any materials, any print? So another thing that I have to contribute before we open it to questions is, how do I say this?
You don't have to be diplomatic. We know that
No. So
you just say it.
I've been living in Israel most of my life, and I don't think I've ever seen a camel. So what they tell you about camels, the only thing I can contribute is that we have cars now. And, some of us are still learning how to drive them. But, no, I'm joking. Camels are not a thing. And we're not that exotic. We're very American in many things. We copy a lot of your terrible things. And not to say that everything here is terrible. There's a lot of great things that we take also. But we tend to copy the terrible things for some reason. And it's a wonderful country, and I would advise you to just come very open-minded, because you're going to meet, I'm assuming, different people in different places, and also different mentalities within Israel. And let's stop with that and kind of open it to a discussion, if that's a good place to stop.
Rami, we have a question from one of the people watching on YouTube. And this may not be your area of expertise, but you're the only Israeli person in the room. Does Israel use mostly cash or credit card? So, we're going to be advised to get cash at the airport, at the ATM in the airport. We're going to pay our own lunches as we go, but do you have an answer, like which is the way to go, or which will we be able to use more of?
I think almost everywhere you can use a credit card. Maybe if you go to some markets. Yeah. But mostly credit. It's like in America.
Does anybody here have a question? I want to get it on the microphone so people on YouTube can hear.
So much like even throughout this country, with it being so far and wide, that there are different, maybe greeting customs. Like, I've often heard when traveling, Americans are very overwhelming when you introduce yourself to somebody, just by the nature of who we are. But I wondered, could you say, we're going to be meeting so many people, and we're going to be talking to so many people. I would love to just get a little insight into, you know, what's that expectation of when you're having a conversation like that? How does each person kind of carry their own like water in that? You know, that we're not, you know, I've heard, you know, when I've traveled overseas that, you know, it's if you say, you know, how are you? And in America, we'll say, oh, how are you? And the custom is to be like, oh, I'm great. And in other countries, they will tell you everything that happened because that's, you know, they think, oh, you've asked me, how am I? Well, I have this going on and this going on. Where here, it's like a slang.
Right.
So I maybe just a little
It's the
insight
same
into
in
that.
Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think in that sense there's anything you need to prepare or change or yeah. I think you'll be fine.
That's exactly what I was.
But it's a very sensitive question, and thank you for
I
that.
was a little concerned about the weather being in February.
Yeah.
It's
It's gonna be better than here, I'll tell you
I'm
that.
sure it is. But I mean, is it consistent through Israel? There are areas that have different weathers. You know, what kind of clothing would they need in terms of how cold it's going to get?
I feel like Google can answer that better than me.
Thank you.
I mean, it's winter, so yeah, take a jacket, but you don't need this. It's not as cold as here. It's much warmer in general.
Alicia, you will not need that down coat, no. We were there, a group from this church, mostly from this church, went in 2016 at the same time of year in February, and it was very nice. It was in the 60s and the 70s, and we had one day of heavy, heavy rain. So you definitely need a waterproof raincoat. And then if you use the raincoat as your primary jacket, then you can put like a sweater on underneath it in case it's cool, and you'll be fine. And then you can take it off, and you might, on some days, you might need just a short sleeve shirt, and that's it. Like Petra seemed like it was quite warm, and you work up kind of a sweat getting there. And by the way, Petra has camels. So they will get to see
never
some
been to
camels.
Petra.
Anyway, you need a variety of clothing, and then keep an eye on the weather. But it's not winter by any means. Oh, I'm sorry. Sue?
I can disagree with that.
Oh,
Because when I was there in
2019?
yeah, Sfat was very cold. It was zero. And it was freezing rain. So not everywhere.
Keep an eye on the forecast.
Yeah,
2
there are
weeks
different
out.
places, exactly.
Yeah.
Just Google it.
Love the camel comment, by the way. And I guess that's one thing I would add is that we're really going to a highly developed country. We have our images, and we draw so many of our images perhaps from the Bible. You'll have self-service across the country. Credit cards are taken everywhere, it seemed to me. You know, you won't see any ponies pulling carts around, very rarely. I mean, I was in Egypt a couple of years ago, and it's all over the place, but it's really a modern country very much. I mean, the cities are marvelous. So just enjoy all the comforts that it has to offer.
Any more questions?
Have any concerns or just things that you're curious about?
Yes.
No, it's okay. It's
We
okay.
got one over here.
Hi, I just want to know about the language. When we were in Europe, they spoke English almost everywhere.
Yeah.
Is that the same there? And when we're going for lunch, will the menus be also in English, or will they be in Hebrew or Yiddish, or what are we
They're
looking
not
for?
going to be in Yiddish.
Okay.
Some places will have, definitely in Tel Aviv and probably Jerusalem too, will have menus, and places that tourists come will definitely have menus in English as well. What was the first question before that? Sorry?
Just language, everyone is speaking.
Oh, pretty much, yeah. I would say probably better than most European countries. Yeah, a lot of people understand definitely the simple things. To have a meaningful conversation in English, some people, a lot of people can, but some people, but definitely not less than what you have experienced in Europe.
We have time for one more
Oh,
question.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to know about security. You hear stories, and so what's your take on that?
Right. So I think you should you should look at the whole security issue the same as if some alien would come to America and see that once in a couple of months there's a shooting at a school. So some might say, well, this is a crazy place where people get shot in schools all the time, right? Because this is what makes the news, and so there's kind of an atmosphere, and especially if you don't live in that place, this is kind of what you hear, right? Because this is what the news does. I would say you have a better chance of getting raped and mugged in New York City than anything happening to you in Israel. It's really mostly safe, and better chance of getting in a car accident here in Canton, statistically. So I think you're good. Just, yeah.
The tour company, I yell it, is hooked into the security apparatus. When there are people from other countries visiting Israel, they're on alert. So itineraries can change in an instant if there's a need to for some security thing. But Rabbi Spitzer, I just saw him yesterday. He came with a group of young people to the church here, part of their Sunday school. And I asked him about his trip to Israel in the summer with his family. And he said that at that time there was some bombs or whatever coming from Gaza up to somewhere. And he could hear the bombs, but he also heard the Iron Dome go into effect, which was like boom, and that knocks the bombs out of the air. So it was just like sort of something that just happened. Anyway, I'd say nothing to worry about. So, Rami, we have to have more on the agenda than just you. We would love to have you stay all day.
It's very weird, but if you have other things, fine. I respect that.
And we would love to hear your music.
She took the microphone.
Now where's the, I need the hook.
I think I'm going to be performing here for probably Independence Day, but it was great to meet you all, and I hope you have a great trip, and I appreciate, as an Israeli, I appreciate your interest in my country, and I can have just very short. I appreciate the interest that you take in Israel, and I appreciate your friendship as an Israeli, and I hope you have a great time.
Thank you, Rami. So now it's time for Rabbi David Komorowski to join us and talk a little bit about the value of this trip that we're taking. Here you go.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rami. Yes, Rami will be performing as a musician in a corner stage near, as far away from humanity as possible, as the Canton Jewish community celebrates Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel Independence Day in the spring. So you will all get on the, now that we know who you are, it's like Columbia House Records. You're going to be getting emails for the rest of your life. If you look around this room, thank you very much, Rami. If you look around this room, I'll think about what it feels like at the most joyous time of year. And now I'm going to tell you one of the most joyous moments of my life happened when I was 22 years old. It was the first time I visited Israel. It was my first night in Israel. I had come to live for the year. I was 22 years old, a seminary student, and we were not all scholars and wonderful human beings like DeVries and Wallace. We were wild animals, and we were on the street in Jerusalem enjoying ourselves and drinking our Maccabi beer, and I saw a fight break out which was just like being in college again. And I had this epiphany, this moment where I realized that the people who were drunk and getting sick on the street and fighting and being arrested were all Jewish. And the police officers arresting them were Jewish. And the people driving the trucks to take them to jail were Jewish. And both their public defender and the judge the next day would be Jewish. And the mothers and fathers yelling at them when they bailed them out of prison were Jewish. And it felt to me for the first time as a kid from Akron, this, by the way, is an Akron accent. Rami's is not. He may live in Akron, but I'm a native. And I bring that up because it can be quite jarring for Jewish people who are an indistinct numerical minority in the world, in this country and in Stark County. There are fewer than 1,000 Jewish people in Stark County. Mark Tenenbaum happens to be related to all of them. But there are so few Jews in the world. Israel is the only place where it's normal, where it's not an aberration to be Jewish. So when I talk about the value of an interfaith trip, keep that in mind. When you see somebody on the street misbehaving, it's my people, and possibly a relative. The value of an interfaith trip. Michael is going to talk after I do about a trip like this, a mission or a pilgrimage versus vacation. I mean, it's going to be relaxing and it's going to be fun, but it's an educational experience as well. So the value of an interfaith trip, keep this in mind. Judaism is not a religion. Judaism is not a religion. In Judaism, it does not matter what you believe. Judaism is about deed rather than creed. It is about doing the mitzvot rather than professing or confessing a faith. We are not Anabaptists. Once you're circumcised, once you're named, you're Jewish forever. There's no such thing as somebody who used to be Jewish. We say they're still Jewish. They may be apostates, but they're still Jewish. Because being Jewish is like citizenship. And while we who are Jewish in this room and will be going on this trip together are American citizens, we may come from different places and we are Americans, our Judaism is like citizenship as well. And you can become a citizen by accident or on purpose, and likewise with Jews. There are Jews by choice and people who are Jewish by accident. And there are all different kinds of flavors of Judaism that we don't see regularly in Canton. We get an almost homogeneous slice of Judaism in Stark County. Almost all Ashkenazi, Reform or conservative in practice Jews. There's a small Orthodox community here, and by small I mean like 3 or 4 people who are like really Orthodox in their practice, orthoprax. Even the Orthodox rabbi in Canton lives in Cleveland. But what we're going to see there is not the living faith of the dead or the dead faith of the living. What we are going to see there is not a museum. It is Judaism being practiced in all of its array. What we're going to see is Christianity practiced in all of its array, Islam, Baha'i. You're going to see everything imaginable. And the value of the interfaith trip is that we get to ask each other questions and get to experience what these things mean without having to go to a book or go to a Google. You'll have me and Pastor Wallace and Pastor DeVries and the tour guide and each other to be able to share these experiences that we're having there. There's really no place like it on earth. It has every elevation from the Golan Heights, where we'll be, to the Dead Sea, the lowest point on earth, where we'll be. It is about the same latitude as, I think that Jerusalem is the same latitude as El Paso, Texas. So it's a moderate climate, but you have diversity, Jews from everywhere, and people who are not Jewish, but who, for one reason or another, choose to live in a state that is the only place in the world that is majority Jewish. And since there is nothing in Judaism that says the whole world has to be Jewish, If I try to convert you while we're on this trip, then check something, because I'm not doing something right. We have enough problems with the people we already have. We don't go out evangelizing. I always wondered if Billy Graham ever thought, I want to do just like the Jews, and then realized Jews are 0.25% of the world's population. You know what? I'm going to stick with evangelism. So you're going to see Judaism not as a museum, but as a living, breathing tradition in lots of varieties. And we'll share this experience and then come back here and be able to hear Rami together in concert and build these positive experiences and lifelong relationships that are interfaith. Because so much of the division in the world and that peace that is elusive is because people don't know each other as human beings. People know each other as caricatures or as stereotypes or as either something more than or less than. And what I hope that you'll experience in Israel, as I do every time I go, is something that you've never seen before. I've been to Israel many times, and each time it's a different place because it's a rapidly advancing society, but also I'm different each time. So today I took my final exam in the story of it's called the Story of the Christian Faith, or Christian History in the doctoral program at Ashland Theological Seminary. And I had to, in the evaluation, I had to say what was different, or how am I thinking differently in this, now that the semester's over. And I referenced this trip, that I've been to Bethlehem, I've been to Nazareth, I've been to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, I've been to the Mount of Beatitudes. They never meant anything to me, beyond historical places like I've been to the Parthenon in Rome. But this time will be different, not just because I've learned more, but because I'll be with you. And because every other trip that I've taken with a group has been with other Jews who look at these Christian sites as artifacts of something that we don't do. And likewise, when Christians in our group go to the Western Wall or go to the city of Tzfat or Safed, when we're together, we can ask our tour guide, but ask each other, and we're going to ask you as well to take different opportunities to reflect in a journal about how you are different, because when you come to Israel, you're going to take things back with you, and you're going to leave pieces of yourself there. And I have one final piece of show and tell, because this is what always I end up leaving when I go to Israel, besides a piece of myself. That's an adapter. I have, over the course of my 51 years on earth, I have bought and lost several hundred of these. So if anybody wants this one, feel free. But Nancy is going to talk through some of what we say in Hebrew is tachlis, some of the details of the things about what to bring. This is priceless, I know, because it's also worthless. Reverend Wallace. Yeah? I was at Ashland for a whole semester, and I was very insulted that they were so respectful and nobody tried to convert me. I said, who am I that my soul isn't worth saving? Sold, Ed. I learned about indulgences too, but we'll talk about that on the bus.
Oh gosh. Great. Were there any, were you, okay. Great. So for those who I haven't met yet, I'm Pastor Michael. I'm one of the associate pastors here. And this is going, what time, this is your 24th trip? Something, 20. It's like my 5th passport. I don't know. Right. This will be my very first time to Israel. So while Dave and I are representing the Christian clergy, you've been before, right? Just 6 years ago. But it's my first time. But I hope that we're all coming at this at different experiences. So I just want to talk. I want to talk about a few different things. Is that muted, by the way? Oh, okay. When you've got the two mics in the room, sometimes it likes to feedback. So, I want to just shout out. I know I will repeat it for those at home, but to talk about pilgrimage versus vacation. What are some things that we do on vacations? What are some things you like to do on vacation? You can just shout it out. Read, okay? Oh, the pastor said he likes to drink and get in fights, right? Maybe. I don't know. Sleep in, okay? Sightseeing. Shopping. Ooh, eat some new foods. Great. Anything else? What are other things? I know it's been a while. If you those COVID lockdowns, you almost can't remember like full vacations prior to COVID. It's been a while. But there are certain things that we like to do on vacations. Like I like to go, I'm not a beach person. I don't like to really go to the beach and lay out or go swimming. Instead, when Courtney and I got married, we went on our honeymoon, we went to Mexico and everyone said, "Oh, what beach did you go to?" We were hours from the beach. We were inland. We were in Puebla, Mexico. And so very different experience, right? We like to eat. We like to go to the museums, archaeological sites. Those are some things you do on vacation. Now, a pilgrimage is a slightly different word, and I want to just tease out for just a few minutes what the differences are. But first, I want to start by talking and addressing Jewish pilgrimages, right? Because if we consider the history of Israel, there were, of course, the destruction of the first temple. There's always people that were away from Israel, and they always kind of came back, right, at important festivals. But then with the destruction of the first temple in 586, okay, I was a decade off, that's okay. 586, with the destruction of the temple, right, the diaspora, and most people are in Babylon, there is this longing for Israel, for Jerusalem. There is this, and this becomes part of the faith, both of Judaism and of Christianity, that we want to go to this place. And at various times, we're able, but at some times we're not, right? There were periods, especially after the destruction of the second temple, where the Romans said, "Oh, you're Jewish? You can't come. You can't come into Jerusalem. You can't see these ruins anymore. You can't come and pray." And so there's this sense of longing that has been built up over centuries and centuries. And then, right, as David and I have talked about, at the Seder table, when you say next year in Jerusalem, before 1948, it was always, oh yeah, someday in Jerusalem, next year in Jerusalem, whenever that'll be, right? But then, wow, Israel became a state. And so now next year in Jerusalem has a different meaning, right? It's a place we, Christians and Jews together, get to access. So pilgrimage means something different than vacation. I like to think of it as a Venn diagram. They overlap, but they're different. One author wrote that a visitor passes through a place, right? That's like vacation. But for pilgrimage, the place passes through the pilgrim. I'm going to say that again, that a visitor passes through a place, the place passes through the pilgrim. You're still doing the same actions. You're still in the same location. You might be shopping and reading and sleeping in, maybe, probably not. But there is this different experience when we have this long history of longing to be in this place. Christian pilgrims, one book here, that I just read this last year. It's called The Land Called Holy, Palestine in Christian History and Thought. Sometimes, as we were mentioning earlier when the Shaliach was here, sometimes we have this vision of Israel as being locked in Bible times, right? We imagine the camels, and maybe we see some in Petra. But we're imagining that Israel is locked in time, but it's not, right? It has had a lot of history since scriptures were written and canonized. And in the early days after the apostles, right, there were a lot of Christians in the Holy Land. And in the Byzantine period, I'll be honest, they didn't talk about this in seminary a whole lot. This was a whole stretch of history that was unknown to me. And so we revisit as we do this pilgrimage, we revisit multiple periods in time. We visit periods that we would read about in the Hebrew scriptures, in the New Testament scriptures as well. We recognize that there are faithful Jews and Christians who called these places home, and we honor their stories and try to learn and soak up as much as we can on this pilgrimage. I want to say something about being uncomfortable, right? I know that we represent many different faith traditions, and we all have different ways of living out that tradition. And I know as a Protestant Presbyterian, relics and they're interesting to look at, but they don't have as much meaning for me as they might for Ed, right? And the Catholic tradition. We have different understandings of how faith works. And so my hope, truly for us all, is that there are points where we will all be uncomfortable at one point or another. I want to name that because I think we need to expect it. Because we may encounter those different strands of the faith. Maybe someone is reading the same scripture and saying something very different, and that might make us uncomfortable. And I hope to be in those same shoes. I don't want to be comfortable this whole trip. I want to be challenged. I think that's part of it as well. I want to move on, though, to talk about the idea of holy envy. That's something that's not there on your agenda. But holy envy is a term I came to be aware of a few years ago, and I want to encourage you to take that posture on for this trip. This comes from a Swedish theologian who was a dean at Harvard Divinity School, and he was trying to talk about religious awareness and how we should be as people in the world when we recognize we're not the only ones. And he says that when you're trying to understand another religion, you should ask the adherents of that religion, so ask each other, and not its enemies, right? We should seek to try to understand the other right firsthand, not from other people. And we should not compare our best to their worst, right? And we should leave room for holy envy. Right? These all go, I think, together. Holy envy is that experience of looking over the fence into someone else's faith and marveling, standing in awe, wishing your faith could look a little more like that. So when we're in Israel, we're going to probably hear the Islamic call to prayer a few different times, right? Bending the knee 5 times throughout the day, that's not something I do. But boy, oh boy, I wish I prayed that often, with that regularity, that I had a mat, that I had a direction to stand and pray towards. I have holy envy for our brothers and sisters who are Muslim. Similarly, in the Jewish tradition, I think of all my years of singing at Temple Israel for High Holy Days, and when they march the Torah around the room, and people, they reach out to touch it, and then they kiss the book or their prayer shawl. I think, why do I not have that? That's not something in my tradition, but boy, is that beautiful. And I hope that on this pilgrimage, not vacation, that as we don't pass through the place, but we recognize the place passes through us as pilgrims, that we gain that sense of holy envy, looking around at everyone else and all these other faiths and saying, isn't that beautiful? That's not my faith, but wow, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Barbara Brown Taylor, who wrote a book a few years ago on holy envy, she was a priest, and also she was a professor of religion. And one of her students, after visiting a mosque, wrote this in her reflection. And with this, I will close this portion here. And the student wrote that when it comes to holy envy, one thing really sticks out in my mind. When we went to the mosque on our field trip, the imam spoke to us ahead of time, and what he told us is my holy envy. He told us how he doesn't wish to convert us to Islam. He just wants us to be the best people we can be regardless of religion. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard, and that's my holy envy because I wish Christianity was that way too. So we don't want to convert each other. We want to learn from each other and holy envy. I one final thing, I lied a moment ago. During the month of January 8th, for starting that Sunday and going for 4 weeks, I'm going to be teaching a very short course called A Taste of Hebrew in our Westminster Sunday School class, right in this room, right at this podium. 4 weeks, so especially if you are part of CPC already, please join us in person. If you are not, those classes are online on YouTube. And kind of an overview. This is not just for us, this is for anybody. So we'll be talking biblical Hebrew, we'll be talking about modern Hebrew and everything in between. So if you're interested, we'd love to have you as part of that class. Thanks.
I think I'll do better holding this. I lost my papers. Well, what to bring? Thank you. I'll borrow yours. Thank you, Jenny. I sent out a big email on Saturday afternoon with a whole lot of attachments. One was the agenda for this meeting, and another one was suggestions for stuff to bring. I have a category called luggage and packing. If the suitcase is too big, then you're going to put more than 50 pounds of stuff in it, and then you will pay lots of money to the airline. So it is best to get a smaller size suitcase. It's a check type suitcase, 25 inches. But any bigger than that, you're going to pack too much stuff and it'll weigh too much. So also, as far as carry-on luggage, you can bring a small suitcase to carry on, and then you stick it in the compartment above your head. But 21 inches is the international size. So if you measure it and it's 22 or 23, it might be okay in the United States. But it's best to stay 21 or less traveling internationally. And the only other thing I have under luggage is packing cubes. That just helps you organize your stuff within the suitcase. Now, Rabbi David showed this electrical gizmo that is very important. But I brought an assortment of stuff that we have. Oh gosh, I got it all tangled up. I have one of these. Israel uses this two-prong plug that they use in Europe. But this device right here, you cannot plug your regular, like, for instance, curling iron in it. Don't do that. Unless your curling iron, no, you and Dave, forget it. Your curling iron will go up in smoke unless it has a switch to go over to 220. So this is no good if you have a device that cannot switch between 110 and 220. Okay? Like this, not even a razor or whatever. I think it may be in some of the hotel rooms they may actually have a plug like we have here that you might be able to stick something like a razor in. But I don't think it has enough voltage or amps or whatever it's called to do like a curling iron or whatever. Okay, so this is a valuable thing, but this is more valuable. And this is the thing that I have highlighted on there, this Best Tech adapter converter. Okay, this is the unit. It plugs into the wall with this two-prong thing. You can plug in your regular American things in here. It also has slots you can charge your cell phone or iPad or whatever in it. It's a really great device. However, This particular model, and I don't know about other models, this one has a limit of 200 watts. I looked up to, I don't have a need for a curling iron either. 200 watts is probably not enough for a curling iron. So either leave the curling iron home and go natural, or find one of these that can go higher than 200 watts. My sister and I are rooming together, so Joni, you don't need to buy one of these. Unless, and the hair, figure out the hair without the curling iron. Okay. Yes. You can use that and plug your cell phone little block into that and then plug your, okay. I also have one of these, and this plug, this is the 2-prong plug they have, and this has 4 slots in it for charging your phone or whatever. So this will just plug right into the wall, and your phone can stick into it. No problem. Your phone doesn't worry about 110 versus 220, okay? So you're good with all that. And don't forget to bring the cords to charge your phone with, and you might want to bring a small battery that you can stick in your pocket or your purse in case you take so many pictures you run the phone down during the day. You might want to do that. Charge it up during the day. Got all that? Okay. Clothing and accessories. Compression socks. When we went to Israel in 2016, Dave did not bring compression socks. I washed Ed's socks, dried them, and gave them to Dave so that he would have some. He needed them. So you need them on the plane. Everybody, I don't care how young you are, you need them on the plane. It's a long ride. Your legs are dangling down. I guess there's a few people flying business class or first class and they can lay down, but you'll still need it with all the walking that we're going to do. Compression socks. The kind that I have is Vital socks. They're great. Some people don't like compression socks because they can't figure out how to put them on. Well, there are YouTube videos that show you how to put them on. You turn it inside out except for the foot. You put it on your foot and then ooze it up your leg and you're done. You don't like stick your foot down in it the way you do with a regular sock. Okay. Laundry accessories. We're going to be in Tel Aviv for 2 days, Jerusalem for 3, Galilee for 3 days. The first opportunity seriously to do any kind of laundry would be in Jerusalem because we'll be there 5 days. Time for the stuff to dry. So bring the stuff that you need to do laundry. Good walking shoes. Merrill is my personal brand, the Moab type shoe. It's terrific. Raincoat, I just said, neck wallet, up to you, and a swimsuit. Now, some people want to go into the Dead Sea. It's great. I didn't do it. My husband did, but you really float right there on the top of the water. And the Christians among us may want to remember their baptism. And Dave helped us do that in 2016. And Dave and Michael are going to team up and do that again. We're visiting the site that's set aside in Israel for remembering baptisms. It's not really necessarily any historical place, but it is in the Jordan River. The only other thing that I have on the suggested list is trekking poles, some type of walking pole. I don't think you necessarily need 2 of them, but it's helpful to have at least one because the footing is not always very stable. And don't bring a hairdryer. There are hairdryers. You don't need to bring a hairdryer. It takes up space. You don't need to bring it. Okay. I didn't bring my stuff up here. I lost track of what I was doing. I sent out an enhanced itinerary. That's what document is called. That was created in 2016 by John David Geib, who was one of our trip leaders, and then I've enhanced it with the order that we're doing stuff in this time, plus the additional sites that we're going to see that we didn't see in 2016. There are clickable links in there, so you can, research it. If something sounds interesting, study up what it is. And where applicable, there are some links to or suggested Bible passages. So that hopefully is useful to you. There's also another document that was in there is suggested reading. Ann, could you shut that out, please? Suggested reading. There's a reading list. The most wonderful book that I read before I went to Israel was James Michener, The Source, and that's on the list. Now, Michael brought many of the books that are on the list. They're very intellectual, thank you. That's, oh, I'm not going to pick out any of the particular ones, Michael, but thank you. Good. I'll get to it after I go through all this. Thank you. Another thing is, oh gosh, the caterer called me this afternoon and said, Aladdin's Eatery in Canton, there was an electrical problem next door. The restaurant was closed. We're going to have to figure out how to get you the food, or would you go up to Akron to get it? And so I'm all worried about the food. And finally the guy said, okay, I'll bring it to your house at 4:30 and all this stuff. So all this afternoon I'm fretting about, are we going to have food tonight? So I am really not 100% here because so some of the stuff I intended to bring, I did not bring. However, I have offered to try to figure out transportation to the airport for people that want it. Now, some people have already told me that they are interested in it, but I'm going to send out an email again and say, this is it. You want it? Reply. If you don't want it, you're on your own. So we can arrange to, based on the numbers, maybe decide whether we'll have the bus come here or have the bus go to the temple or not do a bus. So I'll just see how the numbers go, but it'll be important to know whether you want the bus to go to the airport, Cleveland Airport, but also to come back, and whether you're coming back after the Israel portion or coming back after the Petra portion. I need to know that. So please let me know. I don't know how much it will be. Last time, everybody went from the parking lot here and we got in a full-size bus. So, and it really worked out well. So, Rabbi David has created a link so that we can share details about ourselves and a photo, and that there'll be some type of a reference. It's a jot form thing, which I've never seen before, but it's cool. And put a photo of yourself and a little profile, and then he's going to compile it so that when we get there, we can say, I know that face, but I can't remember who that is. So that will be helpful with and then getting to know each other, which I know we've done some of here. And let me see. I'm going to see what the question is. Apparently, a sink stopper, I've never found the metal thing that's down in the bottom of the sink to be adequate to keep the water in the sink, like if you want to soak your undies. So I have 2 of them at home, and I'm planning to bring one so that I can make sure that the bottom of the sink is sealed, and the water, soapy water I put in there to wash my undies doesn't leak out until I'm done, like, washing it. So that's a very interesting question, but thank you for asking that. Linda Brandt, I'm not sure where she is, but Judy, one of your friends? Good, she's in one of your group. Okay, so are there any questions in this room? And maybe Michael, thank you.
So Bertie first.
Rabbi David, where is this link? Did it come in the information that you?
Yes, the last email I sent on Saturday had the link for the jot form thing in it to build your profile.
So that's something we need to go in and do, okay.
Yes, I can send it again. I'll send it again.
Two things, Nancy. One, when you send out the information or query about a bus to the Cleveland, include if there would be any cost for us individually, if that may depend upon how many people use it. Secondly, for those that have been before, it's not like I'm going to be surfing the internet, but is there Wi-Fi? You've mentioned that phone services all over the place, but is there Wi-Fi?
Yes, there's Wi-Fi almost everywhere, and I think we had it in the bus last time. I'm not positive.
So if we wanted to do some of this research as we go along.
Yes,
okay.
yes, that would work. The main thing is, unless you buy some sort of plan to use in Israel, put your phone in airplane mode and leave it there. Wi-Fi works in airplane mode, okay? Wi-Fi works in airplane mode. That just cuts it off from the cellular data. If you land in Israel and it's not in airplane mode, you're going to get an immediate text message from the telco of Israel saying, "Welcome to Israel, $5.95 a minute," or whatever. It is expensive. It's extremely expensive to use your phone overseas. So I'm not sure about text messages. I think text messages will work when you're just in Wi-Fi mode. But anyway, the main thing is you get on the plane in Miami or JFK or wherever you're flying out of, put it in airplane mode and leave it there for 2 weeks.
So then just maybe some folks who went last time or who have traveled more internationally, do you know, like, I have known of friends who have traveled to places where that has been a similar situation, but like they had contacted like AT&T or Verizon to make those arrangements. So is that something that we're able to do? Like if I call Verizon and say, "Hey, I'm going to be in Israel, hook me up." Okay.
Yeah, very briefly.
Absolutely.
I can address this because I looked into it.
For Colombia or Israel?
For Colombia, but it's an internet. We have AT&T. If you actually want to have cell service throughout the whole trip, contact your individual phone company because every company has different rates and plans. And a few years ago with AT&T, you could say, "I'm going to this country. Can I buy a package?" No longer does AT&T do that. As soon as you get into a certain country and turn on your phone, don't have it on airplane mode, and then you go to make a call, you are charged a flat rate every day that you're abroad, in addition to your normal US-based plan. So if you pay $50 a month here, then it's additional $10 a day, I believe. But you can make as many calls and receive as many texts, all those things, with AT&T, up to $100, and then it's covered for the month. But that's just AT&T. Every phone company is different. Oh, yeah.
Yes, WhatsApp, I was going to mention it. There is an app called WhatsApp, and you can hook your friends or relatives into WhatsApp, have them join, you join, and then you use the WhatsApp to communicate, and it works on Wi-Fi. Ed and I were in the Netherlands for 3 months in 2019, and we used WhatsApp with a number of different people, and we were on Wi-Fi the whole time. So it's fine. It works fine. WhatsApp, Courtney, get the grandparents onto WhatsApp. Good. Okay. WhatsApp. It's one word. WHATSAPP. might be what's capital W and the A might be capital A, but WhatsApp. Good question. Very good. Yes, Nikki Ann.
Oh, I've got the mic.
You got the mic.
Good luck getting it back.
Pulling rank on you, Nikki Ann.
I just want to make two comments, if I can.
Yes.
First of all, Nancy and I had the privilege a couple years ago going to Egypt, and we found out halfway through that we were being followed by the secret police. That was with you, right? And at first that kind of scared us until we were told the reason they were really doing it. If an American is hurt, or any violence against American or American is murdered in a foreign country, it throws a foreign country into all kinds of chaos. With our country, there's just international relations can be a tricky thing. So their secret police were actually there to protect us, to make sure that, we wouldn't have known they were there if it hadn't been for somebody who was with us who kind of knew what was going on. So realize Israel doesn't want anything to happen to any of us. There are things going on that we'll never see, but we will be protected. There really isn't a whole lot of reason to be afraid in any way, shape, or form. The other thing I want to say is we will spend the better part of an afternoon at Yad Vashem, which is the Holocaust Memorial Museum. I really encourage you to prepare yourself emotionally for it. It is an overwhelming experience. At some point in time, I think during the last trip there, I had to kind of emotionally just shut myself down, because if I had paid too much attention to too much more, I would have just caved. So just be prepared and understand that this particular afternoon is exhausting. It is wonderful in its sense of celebrating the humanity. There's a lot of wonderful things to see and read about people who really shined, but the overall tenor of the whole thing is pretty down. So it's likely to be one of the real highlights of your trip, or one of those things that really stays with you vividly. I would just encourage you to make sure you are doing something to buttress yourself emotionally before that day.
Gonna come here, and then I'll get you, Ed.
Much to my dismay, I have sleep apnea. And so I usually use distilled water. I'm sure I could use spring water for a day or two, but will that be something that's easily gotten? I'll need a gallon for the week, for the time I'm...
You mean distilled water?
Distilled water, yeah.
I'm sure that you can find it, or somebody at the hotel
simple. Yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sure that'll be
I'm
accessible.
sure I'm not the only one, but
Yeah.
there I said it publicly.
Good question. Good question.
I know as we keep talking about what's available or not in Israel, I think if you're going to New Jersey, like it'll be difficult to find a few things. It may be a different brand and that sort of thing, but pretty much anything that we have here, the luxuries of finding 300 different toothpastes on the shelf, we will have similar availability of multiple things. Somebody else had a question back here. Oop. I'll get you, and then I'll come here.
Just two comments. I won't embarrass you, Nancy. Every evening after we came back from our travels during the day, we had a meeting. And not everybody attended, but most people attended. And what we did in that meeting was share, I guess, our feelings, ideas, what we learned, and that sort of thing. So we actually learned from each other, because somebody else saw something we didn't see, or felt something, or whatever. So that was a good experience. Another experience wasn't so good that Nancy and I had. You want to know what's in your suitcase, because if they pull it to the side, they're not going to say, they're going to tell you, you're going to get the feeling they're going to take your suitcase from you. And they went through the suitcase and they saw something in there, and they wanted us to tell them what it was. Well, now, do you remember everything that's in your suitcase? Do you know what it was? A toothbrush.
Electric
toothbrush. And I mean, 30 minutes, we sat there till we came up with it. I don't know what they would have done. They got tired of talking and says, goodbye. And there goes our suitcase. But so be aware of what's in your suitcase.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you. I've got the people that are remotely watching this asking a couple questions. Number one question was about the CPAP, the power for it. Will that burn up on that thing?
They have to know whether it's 200 watts or less, and if it'll work with this thing.
So 200 watts or less.
Unless you buy a beefier one. I don't know.
Okay.
I can't truly imagine that a CPAP machine, knowing as little as I do about it, that would be more than 200 watts. But they need to look at the label on the thing
Check
and see
theirs.
if it's less than 200 watts, and then it would work on this thing right here.
And would it work on just a regular little plug-in thing?
No. Unless it has a switch that says 110, 220. Probably not.
Probably not.
No.
So that's
See,
an investment we
gotta
need to
have
make.
this is like around $35 or $45. I can't remember.
Okay. Okay, so check the wattage, or what it's drawing, I guess, the voltage. Voltage, thank you.
Well, voltage and watts. If you're going to plug it into that thing, it needs to be less than 200. Or if it's more than 200 watts, then you need to buy a different brand of converter.
Converter, okay.
Converter.
And the other thing was, this one said that you can tell Verizon, if you have Verizon as your carrier for your cell, that they do still have daily or flat rate packages, but you must notify Verizon in advance. And I
Great.
think that was it.
Thank you.
Oh, one more thing. When you're talking about your suitcases, don't forget that the weight of your suitcase adds into your 50 pounds. So if you're going to purchase a suitcase, look for the lightest weight one you can find.
There you go.
Mine is like 7 pounds because we went to Europe and yeah, and I wanted to make sure. So make sure that you're looking at that. Don't look for the biggest and best. Look for how much it weighs.
One more thing that I thought of is taking photos. Please do not take photos of policemen or military people or any type of security people, the people in their uniforms, and then that you have it, but if you put it on Facebook or whatever, the bad people can identify those young men and women using face recognition and then realize that they are security people and then track them down and have bad things happen. So do not take their picture.
Where it was taken.
Oh, yes.
So
yes.
That's what the Ukrainians are actually doing to the Russians in the war.
Okay, cool.
So.
Okay, so don't take any pictures of any uniformed security people or
So
anybody that you know is a security person.
It's back to the hairdryer. No, I'm kidding. Anybody ever go to Vegas, Dave DeVries? You've never been to Vegas? In Vegas, they can tell if you're counting cards by the look in your eyes. That is nothing compared to the interrogation that you get before getting on a flight. If you're flying, you remember when you could go to the airport and not have to take off your shoes and all that stuff? If you're 75 or older, yeah, they don't want you because they're going to all have compression socks. But there are multiple levels of security that you go through in flying to Israel. It doesn't matter if you're flying El Al. We're flying American, and we'll still go through a second level of security. Of course, you don't make jokes with the security people, but they're going to ask you, you just tell the truth. There's no such thing as a wrong answer as long as it's truthful. The Jewish people, they may ask Mark Tenenbaum, they say, why are you going? I'm going with my rabbi. What was your bar mitzvah Torah portion? I've had it happen. Say again? But Bo? Okay, where was this? In Canton, Ohio? Who was your rabbi? They're looking to see if you're telling the truth. So there's nothing wrong with Presbyterians. They may ask you other questions. They secondary screening for Ed, but they're looking for clues that you're shifty. They're going to ask you, did you pack your own luggage? And it's going to be more invasive, but that's for all of our safety.
Another question is that we were in line at the airport. We were lined up, like 30 long. They asked this person a question. The next guy had the same answer.
Yeah.
They asked the same question.
Yes, Ed is saying that we were in a big, long line at the airport, and they just randomly pick people to ask questions to and make sure that, everybody has the same answer. So, yes. Okay. Ooh, no, I don't. I missed that. Okay.
We'll get that on the trip.
Yeah.
We'll get the rest of that story on the trip, I hope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions? Now, are there any more questions from the people watching on YouTube? I really do not want to say my phone number on a YouTube video because this is public domain now, and I'll have to change my phone number. So, yes, you can text me, you can email me, whatever. If somebody does it in the next 30 seconds, sends me a question in the next 30 seconds, I'll be happy to answer it. We've covered a lot of territory here. We did talk about the money. Don't bother getting Israeli currency here. Bring your debit card or credit card and you stick it in the machine at the ATM at the airport. Just be sure to tell your credit card company that you're going to Israel and Petra or Jordan, if that's what you're doing, to make sure that your card is not declined. And I forgot to look up what the exchange rate is, but that's easy enough to do right now to find out 5 shekels to $1 or what. I have no idea what it is. Yes?
Why are you saying not to exchange money here?
Because you get a better deal there. If you go to your bank here, they probably have some effort to go through to get the money, and they're going to charge you for it. But easily you can get it at the ATM at the airport.
The ATM going to charge me?
If your card charges you. I have a card that is free, so. All right. We covered a lot of territory tonight. I hope this has been useful to everybody, to the people here and to the people that are watching on YouTube. But I thank you very much, and I look forward to the trip. If things work out or I can catch my breath, we might arrange to have dinner together, at least the Canton crew, at Aladdin's Eatery one night in January, just to enjoy the food there together. You could pick your own food versus what I picked for tonight, and it's a really wonderful place. So, thank you. Did you have a closing? Rabbi said the blessing.
Yeah.
Quick closing from Pastor.
Just a quick closing. I was just going to echo many of the things that Nancy just said, but to say we have covered a lot of ground. I hope instead of feeling discouraged or scared or overwhelmed, you're feeling full and excited. There are lots of questions being asked about all sorts of different things, and some of it, safety and security, some of it about, debit cards and money and electricity and all those things. But we are in just a few months, less than 2 months, right? I think it's 6.5 weeks. We are going to be in Israel together. So I hope that you can get excited as I am excited. And we look forward to seeing you next year in Jerusalem. Hey. We will see you all again. Thank you.